Dan,
Yeah.
are you sure mental health is not being bewitched? I mean, ndio maana spendangi script. This video is very informative. You see now, when you have not told me hizi vitu, now we can continue. Sindio? How did you come to the UK as a mental health nurse? Hello Team Phoenix and welcome to another video. This is your girl Catherine Minor. Please call me Kate Mimi. It has been a while since I brought a guest on set, and today we are blessed to have one of my very good friends. His name is Dan, but I'll let him introduce himself shortly. Now, Dan is a mental health nurse in the United Kingdom, but you should be interested to know that he actually trained as a general nurse in Kenya. So you're there, you're a mental health nurse, you're wondering, how do I even qualify to go and work in the United Kingdom? Let us hear what he has to tell us. As always, shout out to Dave Kim 254 Studios for making this happen. So, come with me. Let us talk to Dan. Hi, Dan.
Hi. How are you?
I'm all right. Do you mind introducing yourself to my audience?
Yeah, so my name is Dan. You can call me Dan, but my name is Daniel Njenga. I'm a trained nurse. I trained in Kenya, so as a general nurse. Then I later on did psychiatry as a specialty. And yes, I'm here in the UK practicing as a mental health nurse.
Amazing. Dan,
Yeah.
asante sana for coming. Thank you for agreeing to this interview. I know I've just grabbed you from your work.
Yeah.
So I'm so happy to have you here. Now, I know we've never talked about this. We've talked about a lot of things. We've laughed. We've really laughed in this place, but we've never talked about your career. So people will be asking, and I am asking as well, how did you come to the UK as a mental health nurse?
Well, it's quite interesting. I never thought I'll practice as a mental health nurse in the UK, because I've known of many nurses who, well, they had discussion with them. They've been nurses in the UK, US, and none of them has I've never had this discussion of being a mental health nurse. So it so happened that I discussed with one of my friends who was already in the UK. So I really wanted to find out how nursing is in the UK. And by then, when I was discussing with him, I was actually still a general nurse way back home. So and he explained to me how nursing is. And one thing that in the midst of the discussion, one thing that came out very clear was that mental health nursing is doing quite well in the UK, and not only in the UK, but in most of these developed countries. Now, looking back home, you tend to, most people tend to shy away from mental health. And this simply because of, the stigma that's associated with this. So, when my friend told me about that, so I got quite really interested about mental health. So, and I started researching way back home, how is it that I can be a mental health nurse and how I can transit from being a mental health in Kenya to the UK. So, and that's when from, asking friends and stuff, so I realized that there is a pathway that you can really follow, and I mean, you don't need to do extra training. Once you trained as a mental health nurse back home, there's that pathway that you can follow and you can practice in the UK, and that's exactly what I did.
Okay, done.
Yeah.
Now, when I was in nursing school, they took us for psychiatric placement. For me, they took us to Mathari Mental Health Hospital.
Yeah.
Now, are you telling me that Kate, who only did that placement, can come to the UK as a mental health nurse, or do you need to go back to school and train in psychiatry nursing?
Well, actually, two ways to read, if you look at it this way. So as a general nurse way back home, like if you look at nursing in the UK, the way it's structured, so it basically it's from the base, how you like, if you were to transit from Kenya, if you've chosen that your pathway you want to be a general nurse, then it all starts from the CBT. This is the computer-based test that all of us have to do. I think we were doing it in Westlands.
Yeah, we did it in Westlands, true.
Yeah. So for mental health, to be specific, if you're a general nurse, like the way you've said, Kate, like you've trained as a general nurse, you went to Mathare, and that's precisely where I went to, but for my post-basic.
Okay.
So so as a general nurse, with the little experience, but of course definitely you've got interest in mental health, then the first thing you want to do is to do a CBT. That's the computer-based test. So specifically you go for the mental health CBT, not just CBT. So once you're done with your mental health CBT, then again you now follow the other procedure. So you have to do the English exam. Then from there now you look for employment. So the only distinguishing thing about general and mental health is the CBT. So you've got to do specifically the one for mental health. Yeah.
Guys, I didn't know that actually if you have your basic training, you can just do the mental health CBT. You see why it's important to have guests on set? Shida yenu. Now, what about after the CBT?
Well, so after the CBT, you've done your exam, you've passed your CBT exam. So the next thing, you're going to do your English exam.
Yeah.
So you will get the prerequisite marks that's required in English, I believe, but then it was 7. So
and
it was
6.5 in writing.
Yeah. And again, even most countries have again gone ahead and revised that, because like we're talking about countries like New Zealand have also revised their writing to 6.5. Yeah, so once you get the prerequisite English mark, so now you're having your whatever is it bachelor's degree in nursing, is it diploma in nursing, you've done your CBT, you've done your IELTS, you've got your papers in place. So the next thing, you want to secure employment in the UK. And you know, way before even the country was placed in the amber list, so people will even like approach different agencies. So then they will link you to an employer in the UK. So like in my case, I was a bit lucky. So like, again, back to my friend who had told me about mental health. So I asked him, where you're based in the UK, so what institution or who are the employers for mental health? So I was lucky enough, so he linked me straight to the trust. So like the HR who was by then managing international recruitment. So once I got contact with her, but then she was so we like ended up having this discussion. So like, I've done my English, my CBT and stuff. I was quite impressed, because most of the people will be brought through agencies. So that was how my pathway became quite easy for me. So I was dealing straight with the agency and the HR. So the next thing is, once they've organized for a formal interview, of course with someone who is experienced in mental health. So in most cases they will go for probably somebody who is a band higher, like probably band 6 or a ward manager. So these are the people who will conduct your interview. So remember all this is happening while still back home. So most of the things will happen through Zoom, Teams, Skype. I mean, so once that is done, interview is done. So if they're happy with how your presentation. And one thing I realized, because I did several interviews, because I was quite picky, because I didn't want to again end up in the UK and then again start looking for, this is not what I wanted. So I did quite a number of interviews, and I realized most of the interviews that I'd done back home were quite intense. And these ones were basically, they just want you to find out, do you understand really what mental health is all about? So back to being a general nurse who wants to practice mental health. So remember, you probably don't have that exposure to mental health, but when we were doing our general nursing, there is this experience that we all had in the psychiatric unit. So that this is an experience that is quite good for me, despite the fact that I've done the post-basic. So with that experience, so they will just try to ask you the questions around, so what are the conditions, so how do you manage? So basically, it's how you present yourself and the confidence that you have. So once you've bagged that job or whatever offer it is after the interview, and you have your papers in place, so they're going to now go ahead and issue with a COS. Then from there, now you're just going to follow the procedure, the immigration way. So you have to do your TB, you have to then go to Westlands, whatever it is, for your biometrics, and you're good to go. So off you are to the UK. So that's how simple it can be.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dan, I gather that you've done a post-basic. Was this a higher national diploma, or what was it?
Yes. So so like, I did my diploma first in nursing. That was way back. So specifically in Kakamega. Then I was a bit lucky to get a scholarship. So I went and did higher national diploma in Madare. So that's higher diploma in psychiatric nursing.
Wow.
Yeah, so yeah, then I went again and did my bachelor's. So that was in KMU. But unfortunately, I did health system management. So I had to do my bachelor's back. When I landed in the UK, so I had again to do bachelor's. So the Derby one.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah.
So you have two bachelors in health system management and in nursing.
In nursing.
Boss, uko sawa.
Well,
you strategically, Nikogeria. Unajaribu tu.
kujaribu,
No. From the bottom of my heart, congratulations.
Thank you very
I make
much.
it a point of letting people know, and especially nurses, just how important I think they are. And I knew there was something about you, and that is part of the reason why I wanted to bring you on set.
Yeah.
So congratulations. What you may not know is that Dan is not just a mental health nurse, he is a band 6. He is a manager in this place, in mental health. Can you believe it? That is something that we really clap for. We celebrate nurses on this YouTube channel. I believe healthcare workers, when they make boss moves, like the boss moves you've made, is something to celebrate. And look, Dan, there are so many people watching you. There are so many nurses, so many student nurses who come to this channel looking for inspiration, looking for something that they can hold on to. Probably someone is there thinking about mental health, but then again, you know, mental health back home, we think about someone is quote unquote crazy. So I wonder, Dan, what inspired you to pursue mental health, or what benefits are there for a nurse to specialize in mental health?
Well, quite interesting. It's just a few days ago, like, was just giving it a thought. So, like, the same question was posed to me by one of my, I call them clients or service users. So one of them posed to me this question and asked me, Dan, where did you end up in mental health? So, well, at first I was like, well, where did you ask me this? I mean, where is this coming from? So, like, again, I went back home and I was, it made me think, why did I do mental health? Then I just realized when I was growing up, so these are thoughts that now they were just racing in my mind. So I happened to have a friend of mine. I can't remember which year exactly that was, but the flashback, like when I started thinking about my first exposure with mental health. So there was this friend of mine. We were quite young. I remember we were watching World Cup. I can't remember which year. So, like I was sat somewhere with my brother and my father were watching football. Then the friend of mine just happened to, he came in, it was on a Saturday afternoon. And so like we were watching football, all of us were concentrating with football. Then we realized there was something amiss with this guy. So like as we were watching football, he was, sort of diverting to other things, and he was telling us things that all of us will pause and listen. Then again, we'll go back to football. Then after the football was over, he went back home. So that's when we realized from his brother much later came and told us, hey guys, listen, my brother was here and there's something that's not happening. But apparently that day, I think I'm the only one he will listen to. So when I will tell him, hey, let's do this, because that day he even didn't want to go to their place. So he wanted to, stay with us. So like when his brother came to pick him, so I'm the one who could tell him, hey, let's go, and he will listen to me. So we all agreed that this guy is not doing well. There's something amiss. So the next day we'll plan and take him to hospital just to find out what that was all about. So when we went to hospital, I remember there was a medication he was given. So, and they told us, if you're going to inject this guy this medication, he will sleep, then we'll be doing it monthly. So like, I didn't have any medical background by then. I think I was still in probably high school or something. Then later on when I went to do nursing and I started doing psychiatry, so those are the things now I started realizing, oh, and my friend that day, the medication he was given, that could be a depot. That's why did they say that he'll be coming back after a month or so. And I think later on in life, when I started working with patients with distress, patients who are dysregulated, that's when it started sinking to me that mental health is real. And these are people that, like, they will be labeled as lunatics, or you remember even the history of mental health, how it all began. People were labeled as lunatics. So in this case in point, so my friend who happened to be my first point of exposure to mental health, so till today I keep in touch with him. So for him, he was lucky he agreed to the diagnosis by then, and he followed the medication all through, and I mean he's living a good life, married with kids, and so yeah, back to your question. So I think it's part of the things that made me to to end up into doing psychiatry nursing is one, because of the kind of client load that I was dealing in back home where I used to work. And again, like I've said, the dynamics of the country as they were going, everything was heading towards, people getting stressed and stuff. Yeah, so that's how I ended up into mental health. Yeah, and I don't think I'm ever going back to do any other thing. Yeah.
And I know this because you're so happy in mental health.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This guy, if you interact with him, you would think that he has the top job. And sincerely, he sounds like he does. He really loves his job. That much I can tell you.
Yeah.
Really enjoys what he does. Dan, now you're in the United Kingdom.
Yep.
You managed to get a job. Now, a quick question. Do you want to tell me that today, without agencies, nurses can still get employed directly from Kenya? Is it possible?
Very possible. Nurses are actually being employed without agencies as we are talking. So they are trust that they're still recruiting from Kenya. So what nurses need to do right now, as opposed to before where they will, get through these agencies and stuff. So what nurses are doing right now, nurses just need to go to NHS jobs. So jobs are there, they are posted, mental health jobs are posted. So you just need to apply for the job straight to the trust, and once the trust has gotten your application and they're interested with it, so and definitely it goes back to how do you structure your CV. So when you've structured your CV in a manner that every employer looks at it and is like, oh, this guy looks like he knows, or he or she knows what he's doing. So definitely they will get, they'll contact you, organize for interviews like I've said, and if they're happy with your presentation and how you answer the question, then definitely you'll be recruited. So being in the amber list doesn't mean that you can't practice in the UK. It simply means that the government sort of got rid of the agencies, but you remember, employment is a human right, so every one of us are entitled to employment. So that is something that the UK government, the way I've worked here for the short duration I've been here, I know they tend to stick to human rights and those kind of things. So once you've applied directly to any employer, you'll not be denied that chance. So they will recruit you, and definitely you will be on your way to the UK if you're successful. Yeah.
Dan, when I go to track jobs, when I'm looking for a job, for me, I type renal nurse. Someone else might type surgical nurse. Another one might type critical care nurse. So for them, what keyword do they put on that search box?
So I think if you were to, the keyword here will be mental health.
Okay.
So definitely, so you just type mental health nurse, and lots of jobs will pop up on your search.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've talked about NHS trusts being the employers. Do you know of any other employers apart from NHS trusts that recruit mental health nurses?
Like in the UK, yeah, there's private entities that they basically deal with mental health. Okay. There are care homes.
Okay.
There are care homes that specifically deal with patients with challenging behaviors. Okay. So they tend to, work more with mental health nurses. Same when you look at care homes, you're looking at that takes us back to mental health as a whole. So the way mental health is structured, it could be camps. Camps, these are up to around 16, adolescents. Then there's adult mental health. So within adult mental health, so there's private and there's NHS. Same, it applies to camps. So when you go to all persons, so they are here, we are talking about care homes who are, this is now under social care. So these ones are also, they are massive, and they employ quite a number of mental health nurses. So like I've said, so it's the government, it's private, and it's their care homes. So these are the main employers while in the UK.
Perfect. Team Phoenix, you can now confidently search for employers of mental health nurses in Kenya, in the United Kingdom, from what our friend Dan has said, isn't it? I really hope this is important to you. Take notes, tafadhali, write somewhere, you need this. Dan, now let's talk about your practice in the United Kingdom. The other day when we talked, you told me, and I'll quote, I am so happy that I've worked in the United Kingdom. It has made me open my eyes with regards to policies that surround mental health. So, Dan, what difference exists between how United Kingdom approaches mental health and how Kenya does the same? Team Phoenix, I'm so sorry, but we have to cut this video to different parts because I really thought that we're going to finish it in record 10 minutes. But oh my goodness, we have so much to talk about in regards to mental health. So this is the end of part 1, and shortly after this, welcome to part 2. So let me see you in the next part, okay? Cheers!